Welcome, everyone, to WagerTalk Extra. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com, subbing in for Dan. We've got a great segment here for everyone. We're going to be breaking down Japanese League Baseball as well as a KBO game. And of course, we have to do it with my good friend, Tokyo Brandon. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. I know baseball is Man, it's the dog days of baseball, and I know you got a 4% play
Yes.
up in MLB, so make sure everyone goes and grabs that at wagertalk.com. We're going to start off in Japanese League. We're going to talk about the Baystars and the Swallows. Epic rivalry. I know everyone knows about the Baystars and the Swallows rivalry over here
Yep.
in the U.S. But all
Yep.
all joking aside, tell us who you like in this game. Tell us a little bit about the teams, and also tell us about your 4% play that you have up.
Sure. Some of the people in the U.S. might know about the Baystars because the beloved Trevor Bauer is pitching for the Baystars. As a matter of fact, he just finished pitching about two hours ago before recording this, and he got another win. So I think he's like 6-2, doing pretty good. So the Yakult Swallows are the defending champions, and they have the defending home run champion on their team. However, they're struggling mightily this season. And I like this matchup that's going to take place because the Swallows are putting out a pitcher who he's one of those guys. His name's Cy Sneed, and maybe many of you have not. He didn't really make it in the U.S., but he's a semi-reliable pitcher here in Japan. Uh, but he gets a lot of credit. He was actually in the All-Star game, but I have no idea why. His FIP is 390, which is really high. His ERA in the last 3 years is 3.44, which is really high in Japan. One thing about Japanese baseball is in MLB, average game scores are between 8 and 9, whereas in Japan, average game scores are 6.8. So there's a lot less scoring here in Japan. So if you have a 3.44 ERA, that's not very good. His whip is not much better. It's at 1.36 this season. So that's size need for the Yakult Swallows. There's a pitcher named Ozma going for the Baystars, and I really like him. What I like about Ozma is he has not allowed more than 2 runs in a start in his last 5 starts. He's Mr. Reliable, and the Baystars are actually over the Swallows in the rankings right now. Despite the Swallows being defending champions, they are tailing off a bit. They're missing one of their best hitters, and their bullpen is ranked 10 out of 12 teams. Whereas DeNA Yokohama Baystars, they have a reliable bullpen. They have the better starter here, and in the last week, they're actually producing better at the plate. So I really like the DeNA Baystars in this game today. The odds are out in some books, and some books they're not, but these odds are going to come out around minus 115. I think it's great value for the DeNA Yokohama Baystars. So that's where my money is tonight as soon as it comes out.
Great work from Tokyo Brandon breaking down the Baystars and the Swallows. Now we're going to move over to KBO. We've got Hanwha versus SSG. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, SSG is high in the rankings, but they're not very high in the last week or so. They're kind of fizzling out, and it's due to their lack of productivity at the plate, and it's also due to their unreliable bullpen. Uh, they've got Ronus Elias going in this game today against the Hanwha Eagles. Ronus Elias, not very good. On the season, he's got a 4.02 ERA and a 1.49 whip. Not very good. Actually, KBO's game scores are pretty much on par with Major League. They're averaging about 8.9 runs per game in the KBO. So a 4 ERA is actually not that horrible, but it's not very good. So I don't really like Ronus Elias here. And he's had some rough patches against Hama even this season. So Hanwha is one of those teams that gets a bad rap just because of their name, because they've been doormats for the last 3 years. I mean, real bad doormats. So they're actually performing quite well this season. If you look at the rankings, their bullpen's ranked 4 out of 10 teams. They're hitting in the last 5 days. They're averaging 5.8 runs a game, which is number one in the KBO in the last 5 days. Uh, not including the games that were just played a few hours ago. So they're out hitting SSG, and their bullpen is better than SSG. But as always, the problem with Hanwha is run production. But like I said, in the last 5 days, they're producing runs. Over the season, though, they rank last in run production in the KBO. So they're a big underdog. When these numbers come out, they're going to be a big underdog. They're going to be a plus 125. But you can get a run line of plus 1.5 runs here, which is probably going to be about minus 140 or minus 135. I think it's great value taking Hanwha because they've got Felix Pena going, and Felix Pena is Mr. Reliable this season. If you look at his last 10 starts or so, he's only allowed 3 runs once. He usually gets out of games 2 runs or less, which should be good enough here to beat SSG. So if you can get a plus 1.5 run line with Hanwha as an underdog in this game, I think it's great value because they have the better pitcher, they're in better form, and they have the better bullpen. SSG, they're really disappointing. I've lost some money betting on SSG. They're one of those teams that's been ranked 1 or 2 for the last few years, so they get a lot of name recognition, but they're kind of falling off. They're kind of falling off a cliff right now. So I'm going to back Hanwha in this. The money line, instead of that big plus money, I might just take a 1.5 run line here and back Hanwha and Felix Pena.
Love it. We like Hanwha to lay the wood against SSG, a team that's struggling. So, yeah, SSG is kind of like the actor that's a little overrated. Been in some high budget
Yes.
movies, but never won an Oscar, never been nominated. Just a little overrated. So, great work
They
from
are.
Tokyo.
Don't tell Dan though, because that's Dan's favorite team.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, uh, yeah. But
Oh, poor guy.
like you mentioned earlier, I do have a 4% play in MLB today, and I'm actually on a 13-4 run in my MLB plays in the last 3 days, doing a lot of outs recorded props for pitchers and a lot of strikeout props for pitchers, and they're working out quite nicely. I have 2 free plays loaded on my site at WagerTalk.com if you look at Tokyo Brandon's site, and a 4% best bet in MLB for today. So go ahead and grab that at my site at WagerTalk.com.
Absolutely. Let's cash that 4% play. And Brandon, I have to give you credit. You orchestrated
For
one
what?
of the most brilliant reverse jinx tweets I have ever seen the other day. It
Yeah,
was perfect. It was a pitcher outs prop. Who was it?
it
Who
was
was the
Zach
pitcher?
Greinke. It was a Zach Greinke strikeouts prop actually, or no, I'm sorry, you're right. It was an outs prop, and I bet that he wouldn't make it into the 6th inning. And yeah, he was pitching a perfect game through 3 innings. He had no hits, no walks, and he only pitched 33 pitches. So that totally looks like you're gonna go into the 6th inning. And yeah, they kind of started tagging him after I tweeted. I said, "So much for my 5% play. Zach Greinke looks like Nolan Ryan today." And then whoop, he went right into the toilet,
It was a
which is great.
perfect reverse jinx tweet. The timing was perfect, and the key is you can't use those all the time. Just sporadically throw out one. It
That's
cashed your
right.
5% play. So it was a great
Yes,
play, and it was a perfect reverse jinx tweet.
it
So
was. And I
nice
won my
work, Brandon. And also,
5%, which as cappers, as you know, we love to cash our 5%, and it kills us when we lose 5%. So it was a good one.
abs- a- absolutely. In all seriousness, go get Brandon's 4% MLB play. Let's cash a couple KBO and Japanese baseball plays. Brandon, thank you. Good luck on that 4% play. Let's extend that 13-4-1. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Wager Talk Extra. That is Tokyo Brandon. And up next, we will have Adam Trigger. Welcome back to Wager Talk Extra. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com, being joined by Adam Trigger, one of the hottest handicappers around right now. Adam, you're having a great 2023, a great last 365 days. The list goes on and on. But today, we are talking a little bit of KBO. Thanks for joining us. And I love what you're doing here. We're going to talk a series instead of just like a really specific game to start off. I love handicapping baseball. like this, looking at an overall series as opposed to just kind of cherry picking one game at a time. So talk to us about the series breakdown. Samsung, Kiwoom, what do you like and what do you expect in this one?
Well, Andy, first of all, this is going to be right up your alley because I know how you handicap, always looking for like the hidden edges within a game. And that's kind of what I'm looking at as far as the series outlook between these two teams. So there's a lot to unpack here. So let me just kind of frame it by saying these are the two worst teams in the league. Now, this is going to be a competitively priced series because you've got the 9th and 10th place teams in the league right here, with Samsung being in dead last, Kiwoom being in 9th. And the interesting thing here is Kiwoom being the 9th place team is only about 4 games out of a playoff spot. But Kiwoom just lost Jung Ho Lee, who's their star player. He's a guy that's probably headed to Major League Baseball within the next year or two as soon as his service time in Korea is up. And in long term, that's really going to affect them. It's an ankle injury. He's likely done for the season. But in the short term, I think they've kind of rallied a little bit around, it's like that star player theory, right? Star player goes down, and the short term, you get guys kind of stepping up, and it might maybe even galvanizes the team a little bit. I think that it's what we've seen with Kiwoom so far. Samsung, on the other hand, and the reason is that the dynamic is so interesting in this series, they have now, so they just took 2 of 3 from the SSG Landers. That was a pretty impressive sort of result for them. I didn't think they were going to be able to do that, especially because none of the matchups in that series were great for them. And they managed to win 2 games, despite having to essentially go with a bullpen game yesterday. They've used 6 relief pitchers. And if you count their starting pitcher from yesterday, 7 relief pitchers yesterday, 6 the day before against SSG. And they have one of the worst bullpens in the league. One of the lowest rated bullpens in the league, and they just absolutely cooked their bullpen the last 2 days. But the way the series is going to be priced based off the starting pitching, which coming up this weekend, Samsung's got all their good starters lined up in a row. So Friday, you're going to have Tae and Juan. Saturday, you're going to have former Philadelphia Philly and now KBO sort of regular David Buchanan, who's been a stud in this league for the past 5 years. And then it's going to be Albert Suarez on Sunday. So you're going to see Samsung here with kind of short, the prices are going to be, very competitive in the series because they have all of their good starting pitching on the mound. If you are watching these games, listen, in-game betting in KBO is available most places. If you have the luxury of betting these games in play, in any of these games, if you see, like, let's say Friday's game, Tae In Wan, suddenly the pitch count's running up there and he's out after the 5th inning, you could pretty much bet Kiwoom immediately and probably have a great bet, depending on what the score is. Obviously, if Kiwoom's already way ahead, you can't do that. But if it's a close game or they're tied or trailing, I would fade Samsung's bullpen in any of these spots because they're literally running out of pitching. And they're going to ask guys like Juan, Buchanan, Suarez to go as deep into games as they can. But if they can't make it that deep and suddenly they've got to be into the bullpen in the 6th inning or so, you're going to have a great chance to win that game in the late innings with Kiwoom. On top of that, Samsung, their bullpen, not only are they one of the worst bullpens in the league, Andy, they have no high leverage relief guys. Their closer, former MLB pitcher Seung-Hwan Oh, former Cardinal and Rocky, kind of a legend in the KBO, has really regressed. I think he's like 40 years old at this point. He's not the same guy anymore, and he hasn't had a great season. He's gotten pulled from that role a couple times. So they don't have like an 8th or 9th inning guy. So even if you're in a close game, this game is going to be on the road at the Go Check Sky Dome, Kiwoom's home field, where Kiwoom is a much better team. Samsung's still going to have to get, like, even if they're leading here in any of these games, they're still going to have to get tough outs. And they'll be up against it there as well. So I don't necessarily want to fade Samsung's starting pitching. At least I haven't decided. I may find a spot to do so. But guys like Tae In Wan, David Buchanan, Alex Suarez might have the advantage, from a starter against starter perspective here. But there is no question that Kiwoom will have the late advantage in these games. Kiwoom's been a better team at home than they've been on the road all season. And then conversely, Samsung has been worse on the road. Samsung plays in a small ballpark, so they don't get the they don't hit as many home runs on the road, and their offense tends to not be quite as good as it is when they're in their very offense-friendly ballpark at home. So big-time opportunity here if you have the ability to bet this in-game. The second you see one of these Samsung starters yanked early, if that happens, 5th, 6th inning, even after 6, I would jump right in with Kiwoom. Even if they're trailing, you might get plus money. There's going to be a big opportunity for Kiwoom to win these games late this weekend.
Adam Trigger with a great look. We're hoping that Kiwoom's down maybe like 1 or 2 runs, and then we get a fantastic.
Well, and Andy, it's very, very possible because you're going to have on the other side, other than Ariel Jurado, who's going to pitch on Friday for Kiwoom. I mean, there's a pretty big disparity on Saturday and Sunday with the starting pitching. So you're going to have David Buchanan for Samsung against Wante Choi for Kiwoom, and Albert Suarez likely against Jae-Young Jang for Kiwoom. Like the perception, it'll be priced as if Samsung has the significantly better starter. On Friday, they're about even. I think most odds makers are going to have Taein Wan and Ariel Jurado roughly even. So like they're real and as you know, anyone that's ever messed with live betting, the live betting engine is not smart enough to take that into consideration. They're just going to go based off of what the price is on the full game. They're not going to price it in that Samsung has no bullpen. So that's where your advantage is in this if you can live bet these games.
Music to my ears. I love little edges. And yes, it's kind of one of those things where this is where we have the advantage over the algorithm, where they just can't take some of the human elements and plug it in.
Right.
So, yeah, great work, Adam. I love that breakdown. We are going to talk one game in particular. I believe the lines will be out shortly in most of the domestic markets. So first off, tell us what you have up at WagerTalk.com. Again, congratulations on the last year. It's been exciting and fun to watch, pulling for you every day. We're going to talk KT Wiz and the Dinos. What do you have up at WagerTalk.com? And let's talk Wiz and Dinos.
Yeah, so the only thing I have up right now is a 4% play tonight, Major League Baseball. And, short slate, but I've got one that I really like tonight. That's on my page. This very well could be a client play, and if it ends up being a client play, I will post that to Twitter. The only reason I haven't locked this in yet is, as you mentioned, these lines start to trickle out at certain books, and then a lot of the, I typically wait until there's a widely available line that like everyone can bet before I lock in a play. So right here, I think KT Wiz, it opened minus 105 at most places. As long as it's anything close to that, this will likely be a 4% client play. And I will tweet that out to make sure that you know if it's a client play or not. The only way I wouldn't is if there was something that happened with the line, or I got a way worse price, or maybe it moved against me. I'd have to go back and look at it. But I am targeting KT Wiz here as a 4% client play, and I'll explain why. So of these two teams, I think KT is the far superior team. I think this team is very underrated overall. They dealt with some big time injury concerns in the first half, and they are now healthy. Their lineup is healthy. They've had their sort of bullpen sort of back for a while, and they're just a much better team going forward than they were for most of the first half. And again, that's another thing that's not fully reflected in the line, in my opinion. On the other side, NC, they might actually be worse than their sort of overall standing because they have kind of been hurt by injury. They lost Chang Mo Ko, who's one of their best sort of domestic pitchers. And it's really forced them into another one of their pitchers took a line drive off the head. He's not back yet. So, it's really forced them into, having to take their bullpen and use these guys to eat up innings. And so what happens with the way the KBO plays Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you get to the weekend and pitching starts to run out. And that's what's happening a little bit with NC. And I think they're going to be vulnerable because of it here. So NC is going to start Taylor Widener. If you're an MLB fan, you probably remember the name. He spent some time with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's been good, but not great for the Dinos. So the deal with him, he had a good spring. He got hurt. His season got off to a late start. And he's never really, he's had some flashes of being really good, but the overall numbers, 5.18 ERA, 1.32 whip. Even I think he probably improves on that. But the reality is he just hasn't been dominant at any point sort of during his time in what is his first season in the KBO. And he also doesn't always work deep in the game. So I'm willing to go against him with what I feel is a better team in KT, with a guy in Sengbak who kind of he had a breakout season last year. And this year, he's still sitting there with pretty good numbers, 3.71 ERA, 1.20 whip. But he did pitch through injury earlier this season. He's fine now. So I think that sort of negatively affected his numbers. And if you look at the big picture with him, he's putting together another great season. Younger guy, like he may even have a higher ceiling than we've seen so far. He's been very impressive sort of over these last 2 years where he's kind of like broke out in this league. Amazingly, he hasn't had a win since May 25th. KT just hasn't won for him. He's had 3 straight quality starts, and they just can't seem to get him in the win column. But Andy, a big reason for that is they had guys out in their lineup. Beck Ho Kang was out for stretches, and now they have their full complement of hitters back, which I think is a big deal. You go back to the last time these two teams faced. Taylor Widener has one good start. If you look back at his last few starts, was against KT, but it was against a watered down KT. Now he's going to have to face KT at full strength, and they're getting a second look at him. When you get into the later innings of this game, KT's got the advantage with the bullpen, and Young Chan Lee, NC's closer, threw 21 pitches to close out Kia yesterday. Again, I talked about NC's bullpen depth. They don't have it. They're going to need some of these bullpen guys to piece together 2 games this weekend. So they can't just go in and use every top guy they have here, because they're going to need them to fill some innings this weekend. So that I think NC is in a less than favorable spot because of that. I have and Taylor Widener ranked about even. I may give even the slight edge because he's been better of late. But KT's got the advantage later in this game. And with KT with a full strength lineup, I think you're going to see the whiz go off in the second half. They're coming off a loss. I like them to bounce back with a win here. And at the very least, Andy, NC shouldn't be the favorite here. KT is the better team. They should be favored. So at -105, I wouldn't even be surprised if this line flipped. Saw it go up to -110 or -115 KT whiz. I'll jump in wherever I can as soon as it's widely available, but I really like KT to get it done in this spot.
Love it. Always trying to get the best of the numbers. So important in our industry. Great work from Adam Trigger. All of his plays are up at WagerTalk.com. 4% MLB play up, and nobody's having a better last 365 days than Adam Trigger. Adam, great work. Keep up the great plays, and thank you so much for the information. Great work on the series breakdown and that day. Good luck on all your bets. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on Wager Talk Extra. All plays can be found at WagerTalk.com. Good luck on all your bets, and we will see you next time.